All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this very special Headwaters event. I hope you all enjoyed The Last of the Nightingales, which received awards just this past 2 weeks ago at Jackson Wild for natural history filmmaking in both climate stories and nature stories. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And this event is a very special event as part of our fall fundraiser. I want to say thank you to the board of directors for Headwaters, who generously matched $2,500 donated last week in a very successful match day. And another huge shout out to everyone who is supporting us today as well. We have another donor matching another $2,500 today until midnight. And we are really, really thankful for all of your support. I'd also like to say hello to everyone joining us from Donner Creek Brewery in person there. We hope you're enjoying your pints for a cause, and also hope that everyone joining us from home is comfortable and has a beverage and is ready to engage in this excellent discussion. Please share any questions and comments that you have in the chat, either on Facebook or on YouTube, and we will ask those of Masha while we are going. I'm so excited to welcome Masha, the director of The Last of the Nightingales, for this Q&A session. And I would love to have you introduce yourself, a little bit about your background, and what drew you to this incredible story. So take it away, please.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Megan. And how nice it is to be here with you guys today, because, science is what really matters, doesn't it? I'm Masha. I'm a director, I'm a filmmaker, director. I shoot, I edit, and I've been doing this my whole life. But recently, if we kind of felt the call of the planet, and we felt as artists and as filmmakers, the most important thing for us to do now would be to completely pivot. And I feel that's going to be true for the next 20 years while we are making the most important decisions about the future of our planet. So what drew us to this movie? We wanted to create a series of films that weren't just a love letter to the things that were disappearing, but also that took a really strong stance for us to understand what we can learn from some of the disappearing things. And soundscapes are one of those things, as you've heard from Bernie, are one of those things that are just wildly under threat. They're endangered. You can't hear that same music anymore. More than 50% of his archive is gone. And so what a wonderful lens what a weird lens to look at this crisis. We just thought it was fascinating, and we thought not a lot of people have, or we haven't heard of anybody really taking that route. So, but I heard about Bernie on a radio station. He was on one of our local awesome radio stations, and just was fascinated with him. I called him, and he was so gracious, and he wanted to tell his story, and now we're best friends.
I love that. That's fantastic. It sort of speaks to one of the questions that I have for you on the importance of storytelling and hearing the story first on your local radio station. That's where a lot of people first hear stories. And so that clearly was told in a way that spoke to you, which is awesome. At Headwaters, we have a lot of students that come through all of our programs and are interested in potential careers in science fields of some sort. But there are so many career paths and different ways of getting involved, from sound ecology to filmmaking and storytelling. And so, as you mentioned, this generational crisis of climate change and biodiversity losses here. Do you have any advice for anyone in the next generation who is interested in getting involved in some way?
Oh, absolutely. I think, well, I have a couple of messages here, and one is related to this film, and the other one is related to the next film. So of this film, the biggest message here is obvious. Listen, just take a moment take a breath. Why is that important? It allows you to have a closer relationship. It allows you to actually have a conversation with the natural world around you. No, not a metaphorical one, not, an actual one. You can develop a language where you can understand the cues. What is nature telling you right now? How can you communicate back? You can do that. The desert does sing at night. It's true. And you can talk to, to the birds in your backyard. So that's one message. And the other message, the other advice I have for people who are really wanting to get into this more and understand this more, maybe one of the most effective, one of the most important things anyone can do right now is know where your water comes from. And that's related to our next movie. So if you know where your water comes from, everybody's heard of those keystone species and everything like that. But your water is the king or the queen of all the keystone species, basically. If you can protect the waterways wherever they are, you can protect absolutely everything else in that ecosystem. So if you know where your water is from, you can start getting plugged into those issues that are crucial.
That's fantastic, and obviously relates to the name of Headwaters organization.
Exactly. Yes.
Exactly. That's fantastic. I have another question on the way that you decided to produce and direct the film. You are obviously focused so much. This story is about the sound, and so Bernie's recordings are incorporated a lot, and there's also that fantastic score of instrumental throughout as well. But then there's also some really interesting visual effects too. So I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit. One of the things I loved personally was the way that you showed the sound waves sort of as mountains and broke out, this was birds, this was the wolves. That was really interesting. So what goes into making a decision like that as part of a film which people are watching about sound?
Oh, absolutely. We started to talk with Bernie about this really early on. And that was one of our decisions to make it in black and white, is to give more, sound more, it has to go more forward. But we were like, well, when we're talking about frogs, we don't want to see frogs. Or when we're talking about a certain soundscape, we don't want to show the soundscape. So what are we going to show? The reason being is that, once you show frogs, your visual cortex takes over. You're not listening. You're watching the frogs. And then so we don't want that at all. We want people to open up their ears when they're listening to these sounds. So then, okay, so what you were seeing on screen is actually called a spectrogram. A spectrogram is kind of like an audio waveform, but it has frequency, time, and then how loud things are. So that there's three parameters here, X, Y, Z. And we needed to represent a spectrogram, but we weren't sure how yet we were going to do this, because there's so many visualizers nowadays that just visualize audio. And we're like, we don't want to be like a bazillion Google visualizer. Like, what are we going to do? So after thinking, like three people put their heads together, we finally come on, well, why don't we try to create a sculpture out of it? We'll take the actual spectrogram, we will create a physical environment, map out like all of we'll make peaks for volume, we can make peaks instead of the color, because now we're putting it into a 3D environment. And then we'll throw a camera into it, like a drone that can fly through it. And how beautiful it was, because landscape is a soundscape and landscape came together, and it worked really well. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I love that. One other visual aspect is, you can't help but notice the whole thing is in black and white. And so what went into that decision as well? I'd imagine something similar, but.
Exactly. I did mention it actually earlier. That was the very first thing we decided in our talks with Bernie, because we wanted visuals to be less receding, even though it's a very visual medium. This is very hard to kind of try to balance that out this way. Film is vision. But this whole movie was not about not about that. So yeah, black and white was another choice. Colors will really, it'll make your eyes go, and when your eyes are going, your different parts of your brain is lighting up. Mhm.
I couldn't help but think of that question when I was also looking, and the name of your production company is Colorfool Films. And so I was, thinking about the colors and the black and white sort of in contrast there, which was cool.
Thank you.
And then on the music score, I found that really interesting as well. It at some points is loud and you can hear the instrumentals, but you can also still hear the nature sounds. And to me, it kind of seemed like a bridge between our human generated noise and some of the natural noise that is coming. That seemed like you had some of it done for the movie specifically, but then some others you found. I'd love to hear more about the music.
Absolutely. So yeah, we were the music came in actually in the very beginning also because we were thinking, well, how are we going to take our audience on a journey into sound? Like, what are we going to do musically in the beginning? It was like, well, we need to have almost like something people are used to. So like an operatic, like a voice or like an opera or something like a song, something people would identify with to introduce us into the world of sound. So, we ended up using a song by Vivaldi in the beginning, which we had recomposed for that and had a little bit of the voice in there. But then as we kept going, it was a mix match. It was all sorts of different things. We have John Cage in there, for example. There is a whole situation where we had two John Cage songs mixed together. We have an original Bernie's song that he created for Warner Brothers called "In the Wild Sanctuary" from that album, which is kind of a cult album from the 70s that worked beautifully. Of course, we have the Wagner. Of course, we have. And then we had some original music composed as well for this. But the big stars are the natural sounds. So that whole situation, that of course, and like just creating that landscape took us a really long time too. And it's exactly what you were saying. It's like it had to bridge it. As Bernie aptly talks about when he was working with Francis Ford Coppola in Apocalypse Now, we were taking inspiration from that, from all his stories. And, Francis said that the score has to be part, the natural sounds or the Foley, they have to be part of the score. And so he was always working with it this way. And we found that is, of course, the best way you can work with it. Francis knows what's up.
Of course. And yeah, that's amazing. And just something that you said about people being familiar with, instrumental music was interesting. We work a lot. We have a lot of programs that incorporate citizen science into Headwaters programs, and having people, young and old scientists of all different ages, go out and oftentimes people are capturing photos as observations, but iNaturalist, one of the platforms, and eBird, one of the bird-specific platforms, both take sound observations as well, which is really interesting. And one of the things that we often encourage everyone to do when they are going out is becoming familiar with, what is out there, and just, seeing this and pairing that with some of the headlines of the insect apocalypse, and just knowing how many people have seen the decline of insects, that even just, you drive the same road every day, and for a few decades, your car is covered in fewer bugs when you get to the end, or that's sad. But it's also a product of people paying attention to actually see those changes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
A question on that. Did you get a sense from Bernie that he's at a loss for solutions, or is he encouraged to keep recording? one of our things on the citizen science is hopefully a lot of our students are inquisitive and curious and trying to be innovative and looking for solutions.
Absolutely. I mean, that's all we can do right now. I'm going to be really honest with you and say I think people who deeply understand the science, it's tough to be hopeful now. People who deeply understand, who have been on the front lines, they're exhausted, they're tired, they're grieving, they're experiencing this gigantic sense of loss. It's hard to, but I find that this is where best hope comes from. The greatest hope, the greatest strength, courage comes from a place of truth, but you can't sugarcoat it. We Greta Thunberg, beautiful. You can't sugarcoat this now. It's time to really deeply understand what is happening, how urgent this is, and then maybe hope will come. You still keep doing the right thing no matter what. Like, what are we going to do now? It seems hopeless. We still keep doing the right thing, because what else are we going to do? Right, guys? If we're going to go out, might as well go out with music. But maybe we can get together and still have a wonderful future.
Of course. And that, that is one of the things that students learn in the Headwaters programs, is asking those questions and really trying to be curious and understand the world around them. That's one of the things that we hope that everyone takes away from, whether, it's a virtual program like this and watching your film, there's still a way that you can get to know a little bit more about the world through something like this. You don't have to be necessarily out in the field in person or, anything like that.
Absolutely.
Which is a wonderful piece of storytelling. We have a couple of questions that I'm going to combine from our audience at Donner Creek. And it is this film inspiring you to pursue soundscapes even more? Are you planning on incorporating more of this into future films? And then a second piece of that is, are there any other environmental passion projects that you're tackling? You mentioned a water film coming up, but what else are you interested in?
Yes, absolutely. So we are definitely, I'm definitely interested in it. This film opened up my ears. My ears were closed, just like I feel like most everybody. We don't pay attention to it as much. It opened up my ears, and the value of the natural sound, the beauty, the calmness of it. I highly suggest and invite everybody to just try it one day, to just really listen and see how much presence you can get just from that alone, without even learning how to meditate or any of that other stuff. And therefore that translates to art. Yes, there is a value there that is true, that is incredible, and that's potent, and it translates to art in so many ways. Sometimes, silence is more important, natural sound is more important than overscored, pieces that we are so used to having, just this like wall of music and talking forever and ever. That's that part of the question. But the next part of the question, the next film we are working on is about Indigenous wisdom keepers, but it's this phenomenal story that's taking place here in California. The Winnemem Wintu tribe at the headwaters in the Cloud River, the sacred spring where all the people were born and the salmon was born from that sacred spring. This phenomenal tribe is going to bring salmon back to the waters of California. We're talking the Sacramento River all the way up to their McCloud River, which is currently blocked by Shasta Dam. This effort is happening now. This story is absolutely magical. It is both scientific and spiritual. And I think those two worlds can and should sometimes combine.
I love that. We have another question from the audience. Were you starting to make this film before the wildfires and talking to Bernie, or was that part intentional or added later after it happened?
We made this, I started producing the film so we haven't shot anything yet. And then the fires happened, and I got in touch with Bernie approximately 6 or 7 months after the fires.
Okay.
He was very gracious. He wanted to work with us. So no, we knew about the fires when the film was happening. We already knew we had to incorporate that as part of the story. Mhm.
Okay. Sometimes things like that, if you're already in progress and then they happen, really change the story, but then also at the same time just enhance the message that you're telling.
Absolutely. Well, regardless of this way or that way, this message became stronger because, as they say in the film, them being environmental scientists, knowing about this, how they felt like, oh well, it's not going to come to my door. It's coming to everyone's door, you guys.
Of course. I just want to remind our audience if they have any questions, if they'd like to add them to the chat, we can ask you those. But I have a question for you that might end up being a little bit of a wrap up. Bernie talks about the optimism and hope, and you mentioned it a little bit. So just wanted to say, how do you feel about it? You said, we have to do the right thing. Are you optimistic? Do you think that we can do this? Do you think we can save species from extinction? And then is there a story of hope that you can take away from making this film?
Of course, yeah. The story of hope is that there are incredible plethora of people who care and who are doing the right thing. And I think the Headwater Institute is part of that. Getting our young people to become really curious and to understand critical thinking and to get involved in science is a huge part of it. And that's why I was so excited to share the film with you guys. That's hope. That's hope. But it's really on us. And with that, I'm gonna leave it to one of my favorite writers here. So, their glaciers in Iceland are disappearing. And this gentleman was asked by the government of Iceland to write a eulogy for this dead glacier. And this is what he wrote. And so this is our home here. This is the eulogy, more or less, not very verbatim. It goes like this. The fact that I've written this eulogy and that you're standing here reading it means that we knew what was happening. But only you, the people who are reading this, will know what we've decided to do. Now is the great time of decision. Now, do you want it to be hopeful? It can be very hopeful. We can really understand what we're made of. Is there hope out there? For sure. If there's solutions, there is scientific solutions, spiritual solutions, people who care, food, farming, you name it. Anywhere you go, any industry you look into, there's something that can be done and is being done. That's tremendously hopeful. We're going to need more than that, though. So, but that's what's, in some ways, this age is really special that way, because really we will see what we're made of.
I love that. I've seen the eulogy and it is incredible writing and so passionate and
Tell me the name
powerful.
of the writer again. Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Oh my goodness. If anybody's interested in looking that book up, it's beautiful. It's called Time and Water, and the writer is from Iceland. He ran for president there a few years ago when that whole financial fiasco took place. Icelandic names are hard to remember anyway. They're so long.
Yes. Yes. Well, we have one last question from the audience, and people are wondering how they can help promote because everyone has really loved it.
Oh, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. So we are behind on all of our social media because, in our small independent indie world, we're like doing the next one and all sorts of things are paying the bills and things are happening. But the film is going to be showing in San Francisco on the 19th at SF Indie Film Fest, which is at the Roxy at 8:30 p.m. on, was it Thursday the 19th? I think so. Yes, Thursday the 19th. then ultimately it's going to get distributed by PBS. And so there's an opportunity to see. But what we are interested in is how can we develop a program for young students that can take this and start doing some kind of on the ground physical things with soundscapes. I got a little bit of a taste of that. I talked to sixth graders and then to high schoolers, and I just, I brought some things on my laptop and kind of winged it, and they loved it. They loved it so much. The sixth graders were so engaged. They tell you all about the birds, all about every little animal that they met. They're open, they're receptive. What a beautiful time and age. So get in touch if you're interested in any kind of help, and if you're working with kids or in an educational kind of program, get in touch with us and maybe we can develop something for the kids together.
Awesome. Yeah, that would be great. We have a few teachers who might be on, and sometimes we have teachers who assign our screenings and then question and answer to their classes. So we'll make sure to share with the teachers as well.
We're super interested. Yes, we're very open to sharing it with all schools, teachers, and any type of institutions like that. And literally, like, we had requests from, as early as third graders and finishing up with PhD students. So
that's amazing. And I love it because it's such a different way to look at what's going on in the environment and in the natural world. Through a different lens, but that doesn't quite, that's usually a visual phrase and less of an audio, an oral phrase. So that's great. I love that.
exactly. And just one last thing I want to say that Bernie's exhibit, the Great Animal Orchestra, is currently at the Exploratorium. They're going to be closing very, very soon. There's still a chance to catch it. There's this beautiful immersive experience that the kids would love because it's the Exploratorium, and that it's just it's wonderful. So if you're wanting to dig deeper into that, Bernie is the source. So go there.
Awesome. That is wonderful. And I will make sure that we share links both to Colorful Films and the trailer and that exhibit and a couple of the upcoming showings in our little post to attendees when we send this out. We'll also share the recording with anyone who wasn't able to join us live.
Excellent. Thank you so much, guys.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us, Masha, and thank you to everyone who watched and enjoyed the film and engaged with us in questions and answers. We are so excited, and thank you for contributing this film as part of our fall fundraiser. Again, we do have matching donations today, and they are really helpful in getting our students programs. We use some of the money for scholarships and to help provide low-cost programming to schools. And so this is a really awesome program to help us reach our goal for today and for our whole fall fundraiser. So thank you all so much for joining. And Masha, thank you so much again. This film was fantastic.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad you guys enjoyed it, and you have a great night. Have fun.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.